On paper, the deal looked clean. Every number checked. A retired surgeon in Lippstadt, Germany, commissioned a Malö 43, the moderate short keeler with the legendary solid mahogany interior, a boat he had chosen specifically for its reputation as a fortress in bad weather. He visited the yard in Kungsviken, Sweden, several times to supervise construction. He paid in stages as the contract required. He planned his retirement passages. When the Sweden Yachts Group was declared bankrupt at the end of 2023, the insolvency administrator found assets of €11,860 against liabilities of €4,172,000. The retired surgeon's Malö 43 was partially built. He will not receive it. He will not recover his deposit, which alone was approximately €450,000. In the administrator's report, his boat appears as a construction number. He appears as an unsecured creditor. That is not a legal technicality, it is a rank, and it is the rank assigned by law to every buyer who wires a deposit on an undelivered yacht the moment a builder files for insolvency. Which builders protect you from that rank, and which ones guarantee it? That is the audit. Have you ever put a deposit on a new build without knowing what your legal standing was if the yard collapsed before delivery? Drop it in the comments and subscribe to Yachts and Boats. We read the insolvency filings so you do not have to open the wrong one after you have already signed. The Sweden Yachts Group operated 4 brands: Malö, Sweden Yachts, CR Yachts, and Regina af Vindo. They built boats on the historic boat-building island of Orust on the west coast of Sweden, the same island that produces more than 50% of Sweden's sailboat exports. The group's managing director, Mattias Rutgerson, collected deposits from buyers for years while the company was already insolvent. The administrator later established the company had been over-indebted since at least early 2020, 3 years before the formal declaration. 7 serious breaches of accounting obligations were found. In June 2025, the Uddevalla District Court sentenced Rutgerson to a prison term for fraud. The buyers, who had paid hundreds of thousands of euros, received nothing because there was nothing left to receive. Georg Wrobel has 2 A4 folders. They contain the full record, the order, the purchase contract, the equipment lists, the technical drawings, the payment receipts, and the emails from the insolvency administrator winding up the company that took his money and never built his boat. He does not talk about the exact amount of his loss. He says only that it was significantly more than the deposit. This is one man. The pattern behind him runs through 6 decades of yacht building on both sides of the Atlantic. To understand it, you have to follow the money, not the brochure. When a buyer contracts for a new build yacht, payments are structured in stages tied to construction milestones: hull molded, deck joined, engine fitted, systems commissioned. Across the industry, the front-loaded portion runs from 20 to 40% of the contract price before the yacht is anywhere near complete. On a £1.5 million contract, 30% is £450,000. Most buyers assume that money sits in a dedicated account reserved for their specific hull. In most standard build contracts, it does not. The deposit flows into the builder's general operating account, where it funds wages, suppliers, rent on the yard, and the cash flow gap created by the half-finished boats of every other buyer ahead of them in the queue. This is not fraud, it is the operating model, and it works without interruption right up until incoming orders slow faster than the cost of existing builds. When the inflow of new deposits cannot cover the outflow of unfinished construction, the structure does not bend. It breaks onto the people legally positioned at the back of the line, under UK insolvency law and its functional equivalent in US. Chapter 11 proceedings: a buyer holding a deposit on an undelivered vessel is an unsecured creditor. That means they stand behind the secured lender, the bank that holds a charge against the yard's assets. Behind the preferential creditors, which since 2020 includes HMRC, restored to Crown preference status. Behind the staff redundancy claims. Whatever remains after those 3 classes are paid in full reaches the unsecured creditors. In a typical UK administration, an academic study of proceedings found that an average of 21% of total claims was repaid. In the Fairline Yachts administration of January 2025, 6 weeks after a new buyer acquired the company, the administrators published their progress report in August of that year. 4 words summarize the outcome for deposit holders: insufficient funds for unsecured creditors. 0. Not a reduced distribution, not pennies in the pound. 0. Fairline had 17 yachts under construction at the time of administration. Their order book was estimated at £100 million. The secured creditor, DF Capital, was owed £9.4 million. The business sold for £6.7 million. Which part surprises you more, that Fairline had a £100 million order book and still returned nothing to deposit holders, or that this was their 6th ownership change or bankruptcy since 2011? Tell us in the comments. Now the audit. 8 builders. The 4 protection mechanisms that matter are an escrow or ring-fenced trust account named in the contract and held by a third party, a bank refund guarantee, a commitment by a bank independent of the builder to repay your staged payments in full if the yard fails before delivery, progressive title transfer, where the hull is legally registered in your name during construction, and an irrevocable letter of credit, where the issuing bank holds your funds and releases them only against verified build milestones. No builder in this audit publicly documents their standard deposit treatment. That absence is the story. The audit scores each builder on 2 factors: documented financial stability and ownership structure, and whether any public evidence of a deposit protection mechanism exists in their standard contracts. Princess Yachts, Plymouth, Devon, founded in 1965. Owned since March 2023 by KPS Capital Partners, a New York-based private equity fund with approximately $19.5 billion in assets under management. KPS injected approximately £54 million after acquiring the company. Princess reported a pre-tax loss of £16.9 million in 2024, an improvement on the £69 million loss in 2022 and the £45.6 million operating loss the year before that. Revenue of £378 million in 2024 was described internally as a turnaround. 250 redundancies were announced in December 2024. A further 40 management positions were flagged as at risk in November 2025. Order book reported at over £700 million. No publicly documented deposit ring-fence mechanism. Sunseeker International, Poole, Dorset. 3 ownership changes in 18 months. Dalian Wonder Group, China held the company from 2013 to November 2024. They had paid £320 million for it. Lionheart Capital and Orienta Capital Partners acquired it in November 2024. In June 2025, Sunseeker announced up to 200 redundancies, citing softening global demand and the collapse of the US export market, which represents more than 50% of production. Emergency capital was injected by specialist lenders China Capital and Cross Ocean Partners in November 2025. Teneo Financial Advisory was appointed to oversee the restructuring, with receivers installed over shares in an indirect parent company. In March 2026, KCP Holdings completed a 3rd acquisition, described internally as requiring scrutiny under the National Security and Investment Act. No publicly documented deposit ring-fence mechanism. Fairline Yachts, Oundle, Northamptonshire. 6th ownership change or bankruptcy since 2011. Administration confirmed January 2025. 0 distribution to unsecured creditors confirmed August 2025. Acquired by Bronzewood Capital in March 2025 for £6.7 million. Outstanding liabilities from the administration were not assumed. This is what the pattern looks like when it completes. Oyster Yachts, Wroxham, Norfolk. founded 1973 by Richard Matthews on the east coast of England. Built blue water cruising yachts from 50 to 90 feet, established one of the most respected names in British offshore sailing, ran a company, Organized World Rally, that circumnavigated the globe and sold out the 2026 to 2027 edition before the press release about Saxon Wharf was drafted. Administered February 2018, with 160 staff at Saxon Wharf losing jobs and an order book of approximately £80 million. The CEO's internal notice to employees read, "The company has run out of cash and is unable to pay employees for work." Richard Hadida acquired the brand, the molds, the goodwill, and the World Rally franchise out of administration 6 weeks later. What a rescue out of administration does and does not do is the most important distinction in this entire audit. It buys assets clean. It does not, as a rule, assume the old company's debts to its unsecured creditors. The brand walked across the road into a new corporate shell. The deposit holders of the failed company stayed behind in the liquidation with their fractional claim. On May 28, 2026, Oyster announced a phased end to production at the same Saxon Wharf site, with identical assurances about current and future orders to those issued weeks before the 2018 administration. No publicly documented deposit ring fence mechanism in standard contracts. The ledger does not lie. Now the other side. Hallberg Rassi, Elos, Orust Island, Sweden. Founded 1943. Family-owned since 1972. Managed today by Magnus Rassi, the same family, the same island, for 52 consecutive years. More than 9,400 yachts completed. 0 documented collapses. 0 administrations. 0 private equity ownership changes. 0. Builds blue water sailing yachts from 34 to 69 feet, designed entirely by Argentine engineer German Frères since 1989. Designed entirely in-house. The Hallberg Rassi 69 won Blue Water Cruiser of the Year in the British Yachting Awards 2024, voted by readers of Sailing Today magazine in the United Kingdom. The Hallberg Rassi 370 won the Top Yacht Award 2026 from Siegel magazine in Germany. In April 2026, the yard launched its first catamaran, the Hallberg Rassi 39 Cat, a 39-foot blue water cat designed for the same couple-sailed offshore passages the monohull range has served for 5 decades. First catamaran from the yard. Expansion, not contraction. Expansion. No public deposit ring fence documentation, but a 52-year unbroken trading record under a single family is a structural fact that no press release from a private equity acquisition can replicate. The Hinckley Company, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Founded 1928. Now operating under private equity and family investment ownership, but with a continuous trading record of 98 years and no documented administration or bankruptcy. Builds entirely to order. Every Hinckley is a custom specification. Models range from 29 to 55 feet, and there are 10 yacht care service centers from Maine to Florida. They acquired Morris Yachts in 2016 and Hunt Yachts in 2013. Revenue and financial accounts are not publicly disclosed. No documented collapse. The pattern is not accidental. 2 of the 8 builders in this audit have never had a documented administration, receivership, or bankruptcy. Not in a decade, not in a generation, not since the founding. Both are family-owned or have operated under continuous private ownership with no leveraged acquisition structure in the recent record. The other 6 have been through at least one administration, emergency refinancing, or ownership change driven by financial distress. 4 of those 6 are currently owned by private equity or investment fund structures with documented loss years. Ownership structure is the single most predictive variable in this audit. More predictive than revenue, more predictive than order book value, more predictive than brand heritage. A brand that lasted 45 years and produced boats that have crossed every ocean collapsed twice. A builder that has never had a press conference about its financial difficulties has been building on the same island since 1943. The math is not subtle. Now the fix, because alarm without a specific action is useless. 4 demands to make before any wire transfer. First, require an escrow or trust account named in your specific contract. Ask which bank holds it, ask for the account number, and require written confirmation that the funds cannot be accessed by the builder's general operating account. If the builder declines, the answer means your money becomes working capital the moment it lands. Second, request a bank refund guarantee for every staged payment before delivery. This instrument, standard in large superyacht contracts and available in smaller builds at a cost of approximately 3 to 5% of the build price, means an independent financial institution, not the builder, repays your staged payments if the yard fails before handing over the keys. No guarantee, no protection. Third, find the title transfer clause in the contract before you sign. If title only passes on final payment and delivery, then every pound you wire before that moment is an unsecured loan to the company. Have a marine solicitor confirm in writing exactly when you legally own the hull you are paying for. Fourth, run the used hull arithmetic on the same page as the new build price. A 30% deposit on a £1.5 million contract is £450,000. That number is the full purchase price of a proven blue water hull on the brokerage market, a complete refit, and the first year of offshore cruising, with a survey completed before a single pound changes hands. The new build is a leveraged contractual claim on a company's continued solvency. The used hull is the boat. The people who understood that difference before wiring their deposits are sailing right now. The people who did not are in two A4 folders. The acquisition timeline across this industry runs in one direction. Heritage brands are bought, run at margin thresholds set in New York or London, and restructured when the numbers fall below acceptable returns. The deposit holders are not a liability in that calculation. They are an asset, incoming cash flow used to finance the build already in progress, right up until the moment the administration is filed. At that point, they become unsecured creditors in a distribution that returns, on average, 21 pence per pound. The two builders who have never run that sequence did not avoid it by luck. They avoided it because no investment fund set their production targets, and no leveraged acquisition created a debt structure that required a specific revenue threshold to service. Family ownership is not a guarantee, but the documented record is clear on which structure produces zero distributions to deposit holders and which one builds the same boats on the same island for 52 years without a single creditor left behind. Subscribe to Yachts and Boats. This is the forensic record the marine press will not print in full.